afternoon. We are live. I'm Andy Andrews. You have joined us on the Blue Plate Special. We're at Wisdom Harbor Studios here in Orange Beach, Alabama, at the Wharf, home of the famous escalator statues and the Marlin statues too. You can take a picture of both when you come visit us. And we have a studio full of people here. Hey, you guys, where's everybody from? Where are these guys from? Where is everybody? We got Dwayne and Arnett from Piggott, Arkansas, right? Okay, all right. How the Razorbacks going to do this year? You think good? Okay. Until they play Alabama? Yeah. And then Lynn Link and Jim Meyer, locals. Hey, how are you doing? The daughter and son-in-law, and Vivian from South Carolina. Hey. We got more people coming in the door here. More from Tennessee. And hey. All right. We're so glad you guys are here. If you've joined us for the first time, the deal is, if you're on Facebook, please click that notification button and turn on the notifications on your phone so that if we go live here in Wisdom Harbor Studios at any time on Facebook, you will be notified. And also share us. Go ahead and share us to your page. And if you're on YouTube, click the subscription button. Hi to the Twitter people and the LinkedIn people. We're glad you are here. Mossy Crossler Taylor, hello from Pasco, Washington. Kim Petrocki from stormy North Texas. You know, it was that storm was coming right at us this weekend, but it veered off. Probably because we canceled our subscription to the Hurricane of the Month Club last year. So, Linda Rogers Coleman, hello from Texas. Janet Rayburn from Gulf Shores. All right. Nora Sloman, good afternoon to you. Heather Olson, praying for rain today in Utah. And you've shared us. Thank you, Heather in Utah. Kat Hooker, howdy from Spring City, Tennessee at the Catfish Shack. Janet McNeil, Groves Proctor, hello from Arlington, Texas. Jim J, hello from the road. Jennifer Peters, morning, West Virginia, here as always. Jeff Herring, hey buddy, North Georgia, getting the remnants of what we had. We just got kind of the tail end of it yesterday. So Deanna Ward Willis from Hope, Arkansas, that's over in your area. And Barry Williams from Lucedale, Mississippi. All over the world, people are watching. And we got a great show. We're going to talk about 8 persistent myths from history today. That's what we're going to talk about. But, hey, how do you like the shirt? The shirt is from Vortex Optics. This is an awesome company that's set in Michigan. Their home office is, Wisconsin. What did I say? Michigan. I was thinking Michigan because the CEO actually went to Appalachian State and they beat Michigan in the Big House, right? And that's why I was thinking Michigan. So forgive me, Vortex Optics. You guys are. They're in Wisconsin, and Vortex Optics is just great binocular scopes for every budget. Bob Woodall, hey, call Bob. You survived Fred, Dothan, Alabama. And Tom Cole from Amarillo, Texas. Everywhere you go in Texas, you're 200 miles from Amarillo. That's what signs say. Yvonne Palmer. Hey, this is the book that I'm reading right now. And I did not know it was coming out, and I just got it in the mail from Don Reed. Don Reed is the former lead singer of the Statler Brothers and the songwriter of most of their songs, Don and Harold. But this book, he's written several books, and I love every book he's written. But this book, I just particularly am drawn to. First of all, I like the colors, I like the feel. That's important in a book. And it is life lessons from Don Reed. And I'll tell you what this is kind of from. Dan Stone, hello from the North Pole, sort of. Yeah, you're up in Duluth, Minnesota. Dan moved from the beach, moved his family from the beach to Duluth, Minnesota. Okay, well, you can complain about being North Pole if you want. So this book, Life Lessons, covers topics of the heart and mind, often with related stories from scriptures. 90 concise and to-the-point chapters speak to everyday topics we all may experience on any given day from dawn to bedtime. Now, Don Reed, who's the lead singer of the Statler Brothers, has taught a Sunday school class in his home church in Staunton, Virginia, for over 3 decades. And in March of 2020, when the COVID pandemic began closing churches and keeping congregations close to home, he improvised an email lesson and sent it to each member of his friendship class on Saturday nights. From these weekly messages, this book was born and developed. You'll read topics such as passing it on, homesick, the left-handed judge, and does God care who wins the Super Bowl? There are stories that will transport you back to your youth and they'll bring you back to the present with a jolt or two of truth. The chapters cover feelings and insights from both secular and biblical standpoints and often offer a humorous touch to subjects we all enjoy. Don can really write. He is a member of the Country Music Hall of Fame for his songwriting and for the Statler Brothers, and he can write the written word as well as he can songs. And so this book is brand new. It's out, Life Lessons, Don Reed, and I recommend it. Okay, Kimberley Barnes Brewer from Smyrna, Tennessee. Hey, you guys, everybody's all kind of in and set. Good. And there comes Adam Andrews. And we're already going. Adam, now you got to stay to the end of the show. Okay. All right. Adam Andrews with Gulf Coast Nation. And he's just in from another adventure out of town. And so I'm gonna get your info on that in a little bit. Okay, so 8 historical myths. These are the most persistent of 8 historical myths, okay? And so got pictures for some of them. First couple we don't, but I'm going to list these 8. And so these are the most persistent from history, that things that people kind of believe and they think and they aren't. It's not right. All right, number 1, the Glorious Revolution. It wasn't as glorious as it was advertised. So in 1688, William of Orange invaded Britain. He overthrew his father-in-law, James II of England, and in 1689 became a joint sovereign of England, Scotland, and Ireland. Now, according to the 19th century historian Thomas Babington Macaulay, the Glorious Revolution of 1608 was bloodless, consensual, aristocratic, and above all, sensible. And that's what history has, gone down. How many revolutions do you know that are bloodless and sensible? Because the truth of the revolution is far from bloodless. In Reading, 50 men were killed during an uprising in Scotland, and exasperated tensions between the Lowlanders and the Highlanders, which who knows which is which when you're talking about Scotland, the Lowlanders and the Highlanders. But it resulted in a number of rebellions and plots and backstabbings and was linked to the Glencoe massacre. And anytime you have a massacre in history, I have found that massacres are rarely bloodless. Massacres just have a lot of blood. They just seem to have a lot of blood. And so it also provoked a land war with Williams and James leading opposing sides at the Battle of the Boyne, which cost thousands of people their lives, hardly bloodless. And Williams' ultimate victory entrenched centuries of religious division. So how's that for bloodless and sensible? Yeah. Okay. Now, here's the second one. Everybody has believed forever that the free press was a man's game. Okay, so, and this is not so much a myth as it's just a surprisingly unknown fact. For those interested in the history of journalism and printed news, a few names stand out. There's Johannes Gutenberg, the man who kickstarted the print revolution in Europe. There's Daniel Defoe and Jonathan Swift. Daniel Defoe wrote Robinson Crusoe in 1719. Jonathan Swift, the Gulliver's Travels, and they were really early innovators of professional journalism in Great Britain. And they're pioneers of investigative journalism, such as W.T. Sneed, who created the first daily newspaper. But you and I probably are likely to draw a blank as to who established this printing revolution, but because it was established in 1702 by a woman named Elizabeth Mallet, who assembled and published the first newspaper at her printing house on Black Horse Alley near Fleet Bridge in London, in the first edition of what was known as the Daily Courant. And Mallet, in the first edition, wisely asserted that she would relate only matter of fact, supposing other people to have sense enough to make reflections for themselves. That was probably the first mistake the press made, figuring that we had sense enough to make sense out of it ourselves. So, but thank you, Elizabeth, for providing the facts. Okay, now this is a big one. Number 3 is a big one. This is a myth that people have held on to forever because people have, the Aztecs had 15 million people wiped out by disease. And so everybody has figured forever that the Europeans brought smallpox into that. But the Aztecs were not wiped out by smallpox. Scientists now believe they have discovered the cause of an epidemic that struck Mexico's Aztec population in 1545. I think we have a picture of that, of their population. It's on a tapestry, I think, a famous tapestry, which is like a picture on a curtain hanging on a wall. But scientists figured the Aztec population in 1545. There was some kind of eruption that killed up to 15 million people. But in a paper that has been published in Nature, Ecology, and Evolution, they describe how DNA extracted from the teeth of 29 skeletons buried in a cemetery in southern Mexico have now revealed previously unidentified traces of salmonella. And so salmonella took them out. The salmonella bacteria was evident in every skull they examined. And so that's like what? Bad mayonnaise. You know, the Aztecs were killed by bad mayonnaise and like unrefrigerated ham and stuff. And I want to tell you, at the hunting camp, every time we go back to the hunting camp, I always take new mayonnaise because who knows if the power went out and then stayed out and then came back on and we didn't know, because I got sick once on bad Piggly Wiggly mayonnaise. And I'm going to tell you, that is a kind of sick, the Aztecs, it was next to Aztec sickness, you know. It was the kind of sick where I'm praying to God, just like, heal me or take me home. Either way, I'm fine, but one or the other. But bad Piggly Wiggly mayonnaise, you just won't forget it. But that's what took out the Aztecs. Bad mayonnaise. Okay. Now, here's number 4. This is, it seems like one of the most, I don't know, it's a persistent myth to historians. It's not something that's really known on everyday, thing. But the deal is that Harold took one in the eye at the Battle of Hastings. It seems like one of the most certain facts in English medieval history, but accounts relating to Harold Godwinson's death vary considerably. Some sources state that he was killed in the battle. The Priello, which was written shortly after the battle, goes a little further and details how he was lanced in the chest, beheaded, and had his entrails liquefied with a spear. That was not bloodless. And it wasn't until the 12th century that chroniclers started to claim that he was killed by an arrow through the eye. So scholars believe that this is in part due to the reports about the sophisticated archers present at the battle, but also because of the image believed to be Harold Godwinson on the Bayeux Tapestry, which we see right there. It was created shortly after the battle. The tapestry shows 2 figures under the inscription, Harold the King is killed. And the first figure has an arrow in his head. The second is being trampled by a horse. Is the first man Harold? Is the second? Could the figures show Harold's death in sequence? There's no consensus. Nobody really knows. And so, it's just one of those kind of things we don't really know. But you just go with the best story. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. That's what I say. And here's another fact, an odd fact known by few about that is kind of concerning the Battle of Hastings. Winston Churchill, in between World War I and World War II. In World War I, he was Lord of the Admiralty, and then there was a time in World War between the wars that he was like out of politics, out of Parliament, and it was thought that his career was over, and he bought the house that they would live in for the rest of their life. The house is called Chartwell, and Clementine did not like it. She didn't want it, and he wanted it, so he bought it for £5,000. And then spent £20,000 making it where she would like it, okay? Spent £20,000 building, because he had made a lot of money writing, and so he built around the original structure. He actually dug fish ponds out on the 20 acres of Chartwell. But get this. When we look at something and say in America that it's old, we're like 100 years. Wow, that's really old. 150 years. Oh my gosh, that's really old. Well, the original part of Winston Churchill's house that he built the other structure around was built 20 years after the Battle of Hastings, and the Battle of Hastings was fought in 1066. So part of Winston Churchill's house was 1,000 years old. There's no wonder she didn't like it. I mean, there's a lot of ghosts in there for 1,000 years. I don't like ghost houses. So, old houses, that didn't do it for me. There's just a bunch of ghosts. So, but can you imagine a house built 10 years or 20 years after the Battle of Hastings, and it's still standing? And just amazing. All right, here now. This is one that I love, because this is one that I kind of know some stuff about. I got a lot of this information from The Guardian, by the way. did research on The Guardian about this, and I actually knew a lot about this. It's people have believed when they heard of Genghis Khan that he was kind of this just Mongol warlord and unsophisticated, just a barbarian, and in popular culture, Genghis Khan is remembered as this like barbaric caricature of this brutal warlord. And while it's certainly true that a mixture of conquest and bloodshed, there was some bloodshed there. This was not a bloodless guy. And some estimates were that he was responsible for up to 40 million deaths. But this saw him preside over the largest land empire the world has ever known. And the caricature suggests a lack of sophistication and planning, which is really at odds with reality. Genghis Khan used a combination of military might, ruthlessness, psychological warfare, and terror to dominate his enemies, from lighting extra fires to give the impression of a larger army, to promoting soldiers on merit rather than social standing. And all this was bound together by a sophisticated postal system that enabled him to gather and send information in record time. And when they would conquer a people, they would see what they could use, and they would assimilate certain people. Like, oh, these guys can build maps? Well, that might be useful, so let's set them aside and don't kill them, and we'll have map makers. Oh, so these guys know how to make metal? Okay, so that we'll keep them. So anyway, they would assimilate people into their thing. But I got to tell you, when I think about Genghis Khan, I can't help but think about the worst casting choice in Hollywood history. Because there was a movie made in the 50s, and it was Genghis Khan. Matt Jack is watching. He says he misses us. Well, you can hurry on back. I think he's back tomorrow. But Genghis Khan is a movie made in the 50s. And do you know who they cast as Genghis Khan? John Wayne is this Mongol ruler. And you can actually see clips of this on YouTube. They taped his eyes like this, and he doesn't even try to do the accent. It's John Wayne, and you it's awful. He's wearing this helmet, he's got his eyes taped like this, and he goes, "Who brings this Tartar woman to me?" I mean, it's awful. It's just awful. It's John. Who brings this Tartar woman? So, oh man, Genghis Khan, Genghis. All right, number six. Women in medicine started with the lady with the lamp. Now, this is like a common myth, that for many, the story of women and medical care begins with Mary Seacole and Florence Nightingale, who are rightly remembered for their pioneering work in reforming 19th century nursing. But as medical practitioners, women have a rich history that sketches much further back than the 1800s, from the groundbreaking medical writings and practices of the 12th century abbess Hildegard of Bingen, and the astonishing career of Dr. Laura Bassi, who held the position of professor of anatomy at the University of Bologna in 1732, to literally hundreds of everyday medical practitioners who are women, who were conducting bloodletting, prescribing treatments, examining urine, and doing surgery during the early modern period. So they were these women doctors back then. I think he needs a pint of blood leached out. Leeches, please. Well, thank you. But that's the history of the medical profession. There. Okay, 2 more. Number 7. Now, I love this one. I love this one because we've all heard of this, and this is so easily proved wrong. But the persistent myth is that the Sphinx, the nose of the Sphinx, was shot off by the French army. That's what, the myth is. So legend has it that when Napoleon's expedition reached Egypt in 1798, some of his soldiers knocked off the Sphinx's nose while they were taking target practice. It's a fun story, but it's untrue. Drawings of the Sphinx by a Danish naval captain named Frederick Louis Norden, created decades before Napoleon was even born, clearly show the Sphinx without a nose. And going further back, Egyptian historian Al-Mazriki commented on the missing nose in the 15th century. So how the nose came to be destroyed is still debated, but the prevailing guess is weather erosion. Not something nearly as romantic as being shot off by a French soldier. Just pure old rain and wind. And now we are to the last of the persistent myths, and that is that the Victorians were prudes. They were not prudes. They were, I don't know. They were Hugh Hefners before their time, I guess. Because one of the stubborn myths is that they were sexual prudes, and this, in part, is thanks to contemporary plays like The Angel in the House and the very real legal inequality that existed between men and women at the time. But Victorians were quite direct in affairs of the flesh. Queen Victoria, for instance, wrote in her diary how Prince Albert had clasped me in his arms and we kissed each other again and again and again. In history papers that were done by historian Fern Riddell, he notes that the Victorians were the opposite of prudes. This was the era of women publishing guides to contraception and a belief that female pleasure was paramount to a healthy and happy relationship. So too often have we looked at Victorians through legal or medicinal or scientific attitudes, but their everyday culture was vastly different. They were pretty much down in the dirt, and they weren't even bathing then. It was just when you say it was dirty, it was really dirty. It was just dirty. It was just nasty, with probably bad mayonnaise from Piggly Wiggly. So, and then, where's Genghis Khan to clean up a culture when you need him? And all those women doctors were probably right in there with them. So, it's amazing how history just kind of meshes there together. Well, there we have it. That's what we have here on today's Blue Plate Special. You never know what you're going to get when you join us. Tuesdays and Thursdays, we're live here from Orange Beach, Alabama, Wisdom Harbor Studios, and you're welcome to come in and look around the museum part and the store part of the studios and take a gander at the peace table, and we're always glad to have you here, and we're glad for you to come in and rest a little bit and share to your friends. And we like to think we are interesting because we are interested. That's kind of what we think. We're interesting because we are interested. So we'll see you on Thursday, and for now, goodbye.